Hi there, welcome to today's show. This is Project Phoenix Rising, and I am today's host, Reverend Thomas DeShooter. And I will be speaking today with the incredibly talented Narissa Young. Narissa has been involved in sound and music her entire life, and along her journey, it has shaped every part of her life. And what I'm hoping to get out of today's conversation with Narissa is what is sound healing? How can it benefit the individual? What do we need to know going in? Is there anything we need to be afraid of? That sort of thing. And so I hope you'll enjoy today's conversation and the wonderfully talented Narissa Young. Hi, everyone. Welcome. As I laid out in the intro, Narissa Young. Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
I will begin with a land acknowledgement. So we are located here on the traditional and unceded territory of the Nanaimo Nation, and we are grateful for their years, thousands of years of taking care of this territory, and for our presence on it now. We are blessed to be here, and for that we say Haichka. Haichka, so thank you. And one of the things, I seem to bring this up a lot, because it just keeps reverberating in my mind, is one of the things Skopelos, who is from the Nanaimo Nation, brought to my attention, is the idea that whenever we enter anything like this, we bring our ancestors with us, and that they're watching us. And I'd never ever considered that before, right? Anyhow,
so we're not alone in here. Then
we are not alone. We have brought wisdom and souls and tradition
Wonderful.
with us. Yeah. So, tell me about sound healing. So here's what I'm hoping to kind of get an understanding is, how does it work? Right. So is there a science to sound healing? Because I know you've trained, correct? So is there a science to it? What does somebody need to, do they need to be in a state of mind for it to have an effect?
No.
Okay, good. That's a one-word ad. Okay, we don't need to cover that.
Yeah.
Done. And what do they? Should they be worried about going into it? How does it all play out?
Oh, this is going to be so good. Okay,
because you get to educate me on sound healing, because I've done none of it. Although I'm a musician, I know sound has been, music especially has been so important to me. I don't know anything about what you do in the.
So you've been doing it, I'll tell you that.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So what is sound? Just the big question: what is sound healing, and how does it work? So I did my study through the Globe Institute in Sausalito, California, and it was more than 500 hours, which is the most extensive training I have seen ever for that. And then did a specialty in vibroacoustics, which is the study of low frequency targeted to the body. How does it work? A lot of the science of it is through resonance and entrainment. So much like we would enter a choir, voices become stronger when we get into coherence. So that's, in a nutshell, that's actually what we can do in the body with sound healing. So does somebody need to know how it works for it to work? Nope. That's the beauty of sound baths. When you go to a sound bath, you enter into a group coherence. I don't need to know everything about everybody in the sound bath and what they're dealing with. I just know that when I lead the sound bath and I deliver all this texture of sound, it will settle into the places that it needs to go. It will find resonance in the body and strengthen the things, just like a choir, right? If I'm in a choir and you're singing a note and you're not quite sure of it, but I'm really sure of it, and I stand next to you, you're going to get stronger. Okay. So resonance, entrainment is also a factor. We know about that from music, and as musicians, we're sound healers. It just hasn't been packaged that way to us. Many of us, we might have come to it as a form of our own therapeutic, being with our instrument or a songwriting process. But we're all doing sound healing. We all attend concerts. That's group coherence. Right.
Well, sure, you can see the energy, right? When everybody's vibrating in the same, the band's working, or the performer has got that exchange of energy, that frequency going back and forth. That's exactly what you're talking about.
You're getting in the flow. For me, I have this beautiful visual that came to me the other day from I don't know where, and it was me the feeling of being in flow for me is like I was on this, if you imagine this big silver white sort of aurora colored ball that's like 12 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
And I'm on top surfing it while it's rotating under my feet. And then so I can move angles, and that to me is that feeling of being in the flow, right? And musicians get in it all the time. Of course, athletes also. Many other people can get into states of workflow. For me, as a sound worker, sound healer, there's many ways to label that, right? I feel that that's my job. My intention is to enter into that state of flow before I begin a session or any other piece of work that I'm doing. Certainly, the group coherence. Big responsibility, right? Yeah. I'm in care of all the people who have just come. And so the thing I want the most is to dial in to that, so that I can create the most helpful experience.
So in that way, it's sort of like leading a meditation, a meditation practice. You don't want to just suddenly just kind of wake everybody up suddenly, like jerkily. You want to bring people into the state, have them be in that state or whatever state that they find themselves within, and then gently bring them out where it's something that's complete. So there's like a beginning, a middle, and an end to it. Yeah,
it's very much like being the leader of an orchestra in a way.
Okay.
They don't just come out and start crashing things.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a plan, right? There's a score, and I work that way too. It's not rigid. In my case, though, there's room for flow, but there's structure in there as well.
Right.
And I also understand in that process when to use certain textures. Drilling down really deep, Thomas, into the mathematical structures of all that is really fascinating. Are you familiar with the harmonic series?
I've heard of it. I don't know it. Yeah.
So there's a mathematical series of notes that come off of every note. So even in my voice right now, we're hearing we don't hear all of them. We're hearing primary frequencies. There's a mathematical sequence of note called the harmonic series that is above and below every note. This is what determines the texture of a violin over the sound of a trumpet, or a snare drum, or a woman's voice, or a man's voice, is which of those harmonics are more present. Okay, gives it the sound. And it's good to know about that. For me, that time is creating a hybrid. I want to have the knowledge base, because that exists not only in sound, but it's in ourselves. And it extends outward, into our whole world, into the sacred geometry of our cellular design.
Right.
It's really the universe moving like a symphony through us, as us.
Right.
And to me, this experience it's a canvas, and it's my life's work to create a song out of every experience that I can have.
Wow. So here's what I'm thinking of is like, I'm not sure, so when you're trained, are you thinking in terms of notes per se, or like
sometimes?
So when you do sound, is it I'm going to intentionally play a C note here?
Yes, sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. So that's the other piece around doing sound work, is that because I come from a musical background, I find that's a real gift, because I do understand the workings of music theory.
Okay.
And knowing about the perfect fifth and unison and octaves in sound healing is very important. Octaves move energy. Unisons are unifying and stabilizing. The perfect fifth is a very, very home feeling interval. Perfect fourth is very grounding. And again, in music theory, we know there's different feelings of chords, right? Major chord feels happy. Minor chord feels sad or introspective. Well, the same is true when you drill down into those musical intervals. Right. And I will absolutely select certain things for certain times, certain intentions. And that goes for dissonance too. I'm not always looking for pretty things and texture. I'm looking for the places that might need opening. I'm looking for stuck energy also.
Right.
So I'm paying attention to what the person is saying, how they're moving.
I was just going to ask, would those be based on what somebody says that they're here to see you for? I would imagine that there's some sort of intake.
Absolutely.
Like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I do an intake process, and it's followed by an assessment, which is a voice analysis, which, again, from a musical background, this just fascinated me. The voice analysis shows where the 12 musical notes exist in your voice. So I do a voice sample through a few questions, and it will show me a graph of, how much C is in your voice, how much E, how much F. And each one of those is related to body systems.
Okay.
So then I can tell, kind of like acupuncture, how there's 12 meridians. Yeah. I can tell what lines are running too much and what are not getting enough. And then we go about making adjustments through resonance.
So somebody has mapped this out.
Absolutely. She's a naturopath.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a mapping that's been done on this in terms of sound healing.
Mm-hmm.
So really then, and I'm just gonna go off a bit. So unless somebody has trained, to come out and say you're a sound healer could be a little bit dicey, correct?
Exactly.
Like so there'd be a difference between somebody that says, "Hey, I'm going to perform a sound bath." That's one thing. But to actually put up a shingle that says I'm a sound healer, there needs to be some backing behind that.
I think so.
Right. Okay.
I think so. Now I'm very aware that intuition plays a huge part of this work. Mm-hmm. I don't really call myself a sound healer though, because I'm holding space for the healing, but I'm not doing the healing. The person is, or the group is together. Actually, group coherence is very powerful. And so I have some concerns around that for sure, because there's quite a variety of trainings that are out there, and they're not all created equal. Mm-hmm. I was very fortunate to line up with that one because it was a deep dive Zilla.
Right.
One of the instructors, Randy Masters, has a master's in divinity.
Of course he does. He's Randy Masters.
Yeah, master's in divinity, and also he's a mathematical genius.
Right.
And just a super nice guy. And so I had these kinds of people to spend many hours with and ask all the questions.
Right. So somebody who's a math genius is coming at this from a whole, it's not intuitively so much as the analytical.
Even when you drill down to the math though, where's the math coming from?
I don't know where.
Right? The math is coming into the mathematics of the cells.
Right.
And the spaces and what it takes for an organ, a group of cells to become an organ, to become a liver. Right. Well, it's all frequency. Yeah. So those cells have to get into agreement to form that organ.
Right, and you would call that coherence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when there's disease in the body, that is coming out of coherence or out of tune. Mm-hmm. So that's where we step in as sound workers, is helping people tune the body back into a state of coherence, into full function and flow. You've got energy flowing to all those organs, and it's emotional as well. There's emotional layers to that also. Yeah.
You're I can't help but think, and you as a musician, this, that when you're playing with a group of musicians and it's off, it's just such a struggle, mm-hmm. right? Like, I know for me as a drummer, being a timekeeper, when it's off, it's like I'm looking like, how do I pull this together? Because we're not in sync, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it's like for a horn player, and I don't know what it's like for a guitar player. I just know for a drummer, when I'm feeling like we're just not meshing on stuff, it's a real battle. And then those moments, as you said, when you're in flow, where you're just locked into this mm-hmm. space, and everybody is on. Yeah. And it's like you can just let go. Yeah. And that's really what I assume that's what you're trying to get to when you're working with somebody with sound, and they're struggling with something, is to get them internally within their body to be able to let go of something. Yeah, it's letting go. It's creating space also. Right. That's something that I think is really missing in the society, is that we're busy filling the space with, things and ideas. There's a lot of stress still running around out there. And so it's helping people manage that to create space. I hold them as able
on their own to resolve what's happening in their body. But sometimes we need a little support. We need somebody to guide us through something. To answer your bit about, being in the band, in the laws of physics, resonance and entrainment, the most consistent vibration will entrain the others. Okay, and that goes for anything. Right. That goes for music, that goes for an idea, lots of things, right?
So what you're saying is, for example, is if you put a metronome in the room and it's operating, eventually everybody will begin to operate around that because it is the most consistent time signature that's going on. And
Absolutely.
Even though it might be off at first, eventually everybody pulls in.
It's funny that you bring that up, actually, like drummers. Yeah. So to answer your question, in that situation, be the most consistent piece in the room, and everyone will line up to you. Yeah. In metronomes, if you look up on YouTube, metronomes synchronize themselves. Right. There's a great little video where they have, and that's entrainment in action right there. So it's being used a lot in advertising for many decades. I mean, I don't know when they figured that, probably back around the first Coca-Cola ads or something, right? And they understood the power of melody, and not just any old melody. They understood how to work with intervals and create emotion in melody to get you to buy their stuff, right?
Well, pop songs, right?
Yeah.
That's what's so beautiful about pop songs. And that's why they also don't have a long shelf life.
Right. Well, and let's talk about pop songs for a minute, because, I come from also a jazz training, and it's much more, rich in the use of the theory and all the extensions and the different chord types. And I remember, being in the last time I was at VIU in the music program there, and being in months of intense study and really enjoying it, because I loved being in the challenge of it and knowing that I was getting stronger. And I remember coming out of there and going, wow, like there's so many chords in these songs, and it's so beautiful and so rich. But what my body needed then was to stabilize and just play something really simple after, right? I needed a rest. Yeah. Now, pop songs, a lot of them will have simpler chord structures. They'll be on the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, things like that. And there's a reason that there's so many songs written around that, because we're drawn to it as part of our biology of our body. Okay. So if you're familiar with Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, so he shows that piece around Circle the Square, where the body ratios are arranged in many mathematical ratios. One of the predominant ones is the 3-to-2 ratio. Okay. And in music, that is a perfect fifth. Right. So the song of our body is drawn to that perfect fifth over and over and over, so much that our musicians write about it. We want to sing it, twinkle, twinkle, little star, right? Yeah. We crave it like something that's good for us, because it is. Yeah. And so through that resonance and entrainment process, we're actually strengthening the structure of our bodies when we use it. Yeah, so.
I often, just hearing you sing Twinkle Little Star, I just think of music with my children when they were little and being able to soothe them with music.
It's innate in us.
Yeah. When you talked about having a rest, I thought about the work that you do. So as a practitioner, how regimented do you need to be to give yourself space, to give yourself time away from working with others? Because I assume there's a certain amount of you taking on their.
There can be if you're not careful. Yeah. Oh yeah, I have practices that I do for myself to make sure that I'm grounded and am not having any other background ideas about what needs to happen. I'm really it's set and setting. I'm making sure that I'm in the space I need to be. I'm hydrated. I'm rested. I'm clear. My distractions are out, so that I can do my work and hold the very best space for that person, because that's what I want to do, is open space for them so that they can hear into themselves. I think people are very intuitive and very capable when we are given that moment to slow down and go, oh, I feel that, here in my body, or something moved there, or I've never noticed that before. Sometimes we just need to get still and quiet.
Yeah. Having somebody guide us through that can be very helpful. I shouldn't say always believed. I know that one of the things I stand on now as a minister here is that everything we want for ourselves and for our lives is within us. We don't need to go outside of us to find it. And I think you brought up a really good point, is the listening. Have we set up a system in place where we can actually listen? Where we can be curious, ask a question, and have an answer come to us. And that only really comes if we're willing to take the time to be silent.
Absolutely. And look at our world. It's very noisy. It's very distracting, overwhelming. Just look at your own calendar and see how busy it is, and see if you've left space. Somebody asked me the other day, because I'm a person that I really love to make a plan. I see a vision of something already done, and I feel very drawn to move through the steps to create it. And somebody said, man, you get a lot of stuff done. And I said, yeah, but what goes in my calendar first? Space. Time to relax, to make sure I have time to get ready to be somewhere, and self-care. My self-care is all in my calendar at the beginning of the month. Whatever that is, right? It doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. I have the things that I know work for me, and they're in there. So I've created space for myself, which is why I think I can be so effective when the moment requires.
Right.
Also, you mentioned, working with people. So before and after sessions is super important. This is something that maybe not all people who work with various modalities. It could be an energy-based modality. It could be body work. It could be, medical, right? Acupuncture, medical work. Need to definitely do some sort of a cleansing process after. And I have one as well.
Right.
So, because I do deal with a lot of people, and I want to be in my best. It takes a lot to hold space for people, and definitely for a room full. I've got a room full of 20 people this Saturday.
Wow.
That I'll be working with, and it's such an honor.
Yeah. That's there's a great correlation there for me. Obviously, as I get to do talks and be a spiritual leader, so to speak. And it really is an honor and a privilege, and not something to be taken lightly, that you're being entrusted by people to care for them, and to provide an experience that's just for them individually, even though it might be in a group. You're hoping that they can take something from that they can run away with and own, right? And get whatever they came here to get.
Yeah, and some of them don't know at all. Some of them walk in and are just willing. Or they have no idea why they're there, and you're like, that's great too.
Yeah, I got a feeling like I needed to be here. Yeah, and so then... and that's actually a beautiful place to be, right?
Curiosity.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know why I'm here.
Yeah. Great.
Awesome.
Let's start from there.
You're in the perfect place, right? You're in the perfect place.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what it took for you. Like, maybe not what it took, but where was the inclination that had you decide, oh, I want to do this? Was it, because you mentioned when we came in that you had an experience when you were 5 years old, right, with being hit by a door, right? And you can share that if you'd like. But what I'm trying to, I guess, understand, like, how did you decide that from, being a singer, a songwriter, a musician, to now it is a different realm. It's not so much, hey, I'm going to produce music that people are going to go out and buy or come out and see a concert. This is like a one-on-one session with somebody.
And it could be that too.
Or a group session where but the intentionality is not the idea of, hey, I'm going to do this great vocal performance. It's I'm actually going to provide a soundscape for something that's far more intentionally deep, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it was definitely propelled by my desire for authentic, deep connection. And I think that's why I moved into music, is because I could feel that. So I have been playing since elementary school. I picked up the saxophone and just fell in love with the process of making music, something that was coming from within me or through me out into this instrument, whatever it was, right? And that every time I get to know a new instrument, it's the same. It's the same, like, oh, what are we going to do here? You know, what's going to happen? What stories do we have together? So yeah, I've had experiences, you know, there's certainly the one when I was 5, there's been breadcrumbs my whole life, Thomas.
Right.
There's been experiences with sound and with music, and I've started to write about some of them because I find it's interesting. It's like clues that have been left. So leading up to the time when I was ready to start deepening my knowledge and my relationship with music. That has changed everything. So going through in the society and, you know, recording albums and writing songs and, maybe it'll get on the radio or whatever, that was like a version that I think was kind of sold to us. Like, music is entertainment.
Right.
And we're going to package it like this.
Yep. And
ta-da, right? And, you know, it's a bit like playing the lotto in a way, right? It's and you put a lot of hours in. Like,
I wonder if you have more chance at winning the lotto,
right? You know, and then that became the only measure of success for a lot of people.
So it's very ego driven in a way.
Yeah,
like it's like the results of in the outer world.
Yeah.
Determine my quality as a performer or a musician.
Yeah. And my success. And I knew early, like back in my 20s, I was like, well, a successful life to me isn't necessarily all that. Right. That might be part of it. Cool. Mm-hmm. But I knew that there was other measures of success for me. And so when it really changed was actually, I started studying sound therapy in 2014. And I'm actually not even sure how it showed up. I must have got an email, something, don't know. And I took the first semester of the degree program with Globe, which was a certificate then. And it just blew my mind every class. Every class. I thought, wow, this was like a mystery school.
Right.
You know, like this was like unlocking the secrets of the universe, and it all related back to sound and frequency and vibration. That was amazing. I took a break from the studies, and then when 2020 came along and shook everything up, my good friend, my piano player, Scott, and I decided to get out into the street and into the neighborhood concerts. And I think that was really the universe calling me back, saying, look, it's great you've learned all you've learned with music and that you play these instruments and you've got these, you know, these other skills that you've worked on, and it's awesome. And now we have something else for you. And it was that we needed to deliver music as medicine. And that's what it was. We ended up doing 33 of those concerts on Vancouver Island, mostly in Nanaimo. And everyone felt like medicine. Not only for the performers, we brought out almost a dozen other musicians with us on various combinations, but every person in those neighborhoods, like I won't be able to drive past any one of those streets without remembering that show.
Yeah.
You know, who the host was. There was really special stories exchanged about what it meant, and that got me really clear about what I needed to do next. And by the end of that run, the end of summer 2020, I called up the school and I said, I need to come back and finish that degree.
Right.
And it was purely just purpose driven, like no doubt in my mind, about doing this work in a way that is going to reach more people more consistently and create a ripple.
Right.
So actually my word for this year is impact.
Right.
So I'm looking for ideas, for places, for collaborations where I can create more impact like we're doing now, right? I'm hoping that this will actually ripple out, and I'm sure it will, and inspire somebody to think something a little bit different. Well, maybe I could create a little more space in my day, or maybe I could learn an instrument. Hey, learn an instrument. You're never too old. It's really good for you.
Well, you know, not to drip, but I'm blown away that I joined this swing band recently, Good Swings, and you know, these people most of them are retired. They're retired musicians who probably, like yourself, you know, played saxophone in school and just never stopped playing, but never pursued it as a career. It's just something they have. And then what I have found out is some of the people in there, they play 5 different instruments. Like they've never stopped learning how to play music on different instruments, and it's just part of who they are. And in some cases, they're in this band playing a brand new instrument where they could show up and star in the instrument they know really well,
Yeah.
but instead they're taking on something brand new and learning it because they know how to read music. So now it's just figuring out the instrument.
Yeah.
Once they've
Technique.
got the language, it's just technique, right? But it's actually amazing to see for
Yeah.
me. Like I'm really inspired by that, right?
It's really good for us. It's great for the brain. You're literally, I have a thing for, I guess, mostly stringed instruments now, right? Like tiny, like ukuleles, and I've just bought a little bass, and I play guitar. I'm looking at a lyre when I go to Greece, and I like instruments that feel close to the body. So that's my medicine,
Right.
Certainly the voice
Mm-hmm.
is obviously a big one for me. That's the one I've done the most of through my life, and that's sound healing. So the idea, when you learn an instrument, you don't have to be the best. You don't have to try and be famous or have some other financial measure of success if you don't want, if that's not in alignment for you.
Mm-hmm.
That might happen. Great, whatever. Be with it as a form of medicine for yourself first, and know that that's affecting others too. I happen to think that all musicians, no matter what level you're at, are magical.
Mm.
We have this power to let music move through us in a way that is coherent, harmonious, it's rhythmic.
Mm.
Wow. Imagine every musician having a more reverent relationship with music.
Mm-hmm.
Because that person playing their one guitar, I just play for me, on my deck or whatever. Well, guess what? Your neighbor's listening,
Mm-hmm.
and they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
I've been, in the presence of somebody that's humming and feeling benefit from it.
Feeling that energy.
Yeah.
I know for me, drumming saved, in a lot of ways, drumming saved my life.
How so?
Well, I was bullied at school.
Oh.
And so one of the, there's a bit of anger involved, but one of the things I actually imagined at times was that those persons that bullied me their faces were on my drums sometimes. And I would get to beat them up.
Oh my.
Because I didn't want to fight physically, but that for me was a relationship that I could take my it's not that I got to beat them up, I got to take my frustration out. My pain of that experience came out in my playing.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, I didn't need to do anything about it.
Yeah. So it was an avenue of expression for the anger.
It was an avenue of healing and expression that I could just let go of this, and I didn't feel the need to get even or do anything about it because I had an outlet for me.
Yeah. And it is
this is like grade 7, grade 8. It's not like I was cognitively, spiritually awake. That was my expression. That was a way for me to to remove that from my life.
Yeah, for sure. And many people have music as that.
Mm-hmm.
It's vital to our well-being.
Yeah,
I think it's not an accoutrement to our society. It's a vital part of how we connect. Look at other cultures, like even the East Coast Canada, right? I spent some time back there, and I love how they connect through music.
Mm-hmm.
They not only sit and give a performer their full attention, but when, as a group, they feel moved to get up out of their seats and have a dance or start tapping along on the table, they just do it. And they're in relationship with the music in a very special way. I watched a whole room clear on many occasions because a few people just decided it was time to start the dancing, for this fiddle duo or whatever, right? So their relationship with music is much different. And that's really a big part of the work for me too, is I'm deepening my relationship with music. I'm really getting into in making that a more precious experience for myself, so that I can also offer that and be an example of that.
Yeah, that's you just reminded me of, there was a time where I had to walk away from music because it had become, for me, that earlier part we talked about having success, that it was no longer about the joy of playing music in a band and writing songs and being creative. it became, for me, and I'm not saying this was for my fellow bandmates, but for me, it became an exercise of how do we get a record deal and how do we turn this into an income, right? And and I can look back now and I see that shift from, hey, we're just writing the songs that we want to play and we're having fun and we're just going out and doing gigs and celebrating the joy of that, became, when that shift came for me, where it was like, okay, well, how do we take this to the next level? And then it became very analytical and theory based in how to trick people, maybe even to buy our music or to get a record deal. The joy just went.
Yeah.
Right. And I couldn't play drums for the longest time because there was no. I had lost the joy of that, and it's only now that I'm able to play without having to care about that.
Yeah. It's back to that balance piece for me, right? It's because there's nothing wrong with it being a business when it's balanced, when it's grounded and it's balanced. And as a musician, I've been right where you are. Well, what do I do? What kind of? I wrote the songs I wanted to write. I didn't give too much consideration to whether they were likable or commercial or anything like that. But it was about that sort of end game. Right? How do we catch the eye of just the right person? I caught the eye of some people and still nothing happened. So it became, it was tiring. And I've had times in my life where too, I've just walked away from it and gone, you know what, I'm going to do something else for a while. I'm going to take a break. And that's good because you go learn something else or you go have different experiences and you bring it back to music when you're ready to come back to music. We were definitely raised in an era where it was really burgeoning as a business.
Yeah.
And I think that went really to an extreme, has gone to an extreme place. I mean, you watch some of the award shows now, and I just like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Well,
no, you just look at the cost of ticket prices to things, and that's like. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so it's insanity. Really big business now.
Yeah.
And, the artists are paying the price. I mean, how many, I've got probably dozens of friends of mine who are musicians, songwriters in one form or another who have spent, a PhD's worth of time, not paid at all, to be in the business of music.
Yeah.
And then it became this, anyways, that's a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I think that, like anything we do, we should look for balance in that. We should go in with a grounded perspective and say, is this a place I can do my art that is going to be celebrated and received, where everybody wins? I look for the everybody wins.
Yeah.
Is everybody winning here? If it looks like one side is really, really winning and kind of the others are not, or it's not balanced, I go, nope, that's not a place that is going to fit for me. Yeah. So I think creating balance is really, really important in that industry and in the arts overall. The stuff that's happening still in the music business, like they wouldn't get away with in any other sector. It's ridiculous. So, yeah.
I think it's when I reflect back on that, what I think is valuable as a lesson, and it's not a sad story, it's just the way it went, is I didn't have any tools or awareness at the time to notice what was going on. I didn't have, when I think now of even knowing somebody like you, knowing that, I'm struggling with something, I don't know what it is, but I'm actually open to going and seeing you to get some I guess therapy around using sound as opposed to other traditional types. I might go do something like that. I don't know that I would have explored that back then, and I certainly wasn't in a position to notice what was going on within me to say, hey, wait a second, let's stand back a minute here.
Yeah.
What am I actually thinking about? What am I experiencing? So that I can go, whoa, put on the brakes and maybe redefine what I'm doing or recalibrate myself to be, oh no, we're going too far this way. Let's get back over to here. And that's something I'm grateful I have now in my life, is that ability to notice things. And
strong rudder.
Yes, and I guess you need to go through the stuff. To get that.
Yeah.
Now I want to switch a little bit too. I noticed that, What is the name of your company?
Sea of Sound.
Sea of Sound, yes. So I noticed that Sea of Sound, not only are you able for events here locally and for one-on-one sessions, but you also do trips.
Yeah, so I'm leading my first transformational retreat in Greece in June.
Okay.
And this will be a yearly. So I'm really excited to do that. It's going to be on the island of Skopelos, which is where they filmed the Mamma Mia movie. It's stunning and green, and it's a second home for me. I've been there 5 times, and I can't wait to really, what a special intimate container to create. So it is a sound healing themed. So we do sound baths in the morning, we do sound practices, and some very unique experience without it sounding like an infomercial. I've just had so much fun creating this really special intimate container, and I can't wait to see how people experience it. So excited to do that. And the group work has really been interesting for me, right? Because that leads back to that impact piece. I love the one-on-one because I'm planting a strong seed in that moment. And then the group work has become very interesting because it's kind of like every time I come up with a new group idea, it's kind of like songwriting. I'm thinking, okay, how will this work for a group of 12 or 20 or 50 or 100? What ideas do I need to bring in? What isn't working there when it gets bigger? It's a lot of fun for me creating custom group sound experiences. So that's sound baths, but it's also things like I do one called a drum in. That is a process where the participants create their own drum mallet.
Okay.
You know, and infuse it with the intention of that which they want to increase in their life.
Oh, wow. So
then we go through a whole process and we end up in a drum circle, creating group coherence. And, you know, it just comes out of somewhere. It's a big part of my creative process.
Yeah.
And I love it. I feel very, very blessed, very in my lane,
Right.
You know, and I always have that performative aspect too, because I'm still writing and recording. I think when I sort of come out of this time, because I don't feel called to perform right now, I think when I come out of this time, it'll be with something very different.
Yeah.
You know? And performing is still a very special way to reach people in you know, from an entertainment or even a therapeutic experience when we go to a concert. Yeah. Right? You ever seen somebody, you know, burst into tears or have a real visceral emotional response? I'll tell you a story. When I was in Mexico probably about 12 years ago now, I was on with a partner on a much needed vacation. It was really, really overdue. We'd been working hard in our business, and we'd gone to this outdoor concert, kind of like a Cirque du Soleil presentation. Right. Really cool. So singing and people on trapeze and all kinds of stuff. And we were in the restaurant later, and I noticed that the 2 of the musicians came into the restaurant. And it was a female vocalist and a male guitarist. And then I noticed they were going around to each of the tables, and they were doing a little song for that person. And she was really good. Her voice was really present. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're coming over here. This is amazing, right? What a treat. Aren't we lucky, you know? And when she came over, she started singing, and then she turned, and if you were me at the table, as soon as she turned and her voice hit me, it created such a powerful emotional response. I could barely breathe. I was crying so hard.
Wow.
It still gets me, like right now. There was no like, I'm going to cry now. You know, there was,
it just happened.
I think I'm feeling something. No. It was like, really, I felt her voice slice through me. And there's another breadcrumb, right? There's the universe going, hey, there's way more here than you thought at first. Oh, yeah. You know, there's way more here than they told you.
Yeah.
So.
You just reminded me of a story that I have similar to that, and of course it involves Rush, but I went to...
Of course it does.
Of course. I went to a Rush concert in Calgary, so I've traveled around to see the band. You know, I've seen them a number of times. But I had never had tickets front. You know, I was second row. at the show, and they opened up with one of my favorite songs. Anyhow, the song opens with a guitar riff, but then the drums come in with like a double pedal, brum, right, on the bass drums, and I felt I was so close enough that I felt the power of the bass drums, like, and I cried. Yeah, like it was like they're right there, because you know, he was my favorite. Neil Peart was my favorite drummer. Yeah. I used to practice to that stuff all the time. So to have been where in enough vicinity that I could feel the air push from those bass drums just shocked my system. It was I'm not surprised. And in that moment, you're in a kind of an intimate connection with that musician, because they have just taken an action with their body that came from an inspired place, and it touched you. I know early on as a songwriter, I felt that. Like when I first was doing solo stuff, you know, singer-songwriter gigs and stuff in my late 20s, I felt that. I thought, wow, this is really special. And then I would get like annoyed when people wouldn't listen. Not because I thought I was so great. I just thought, wow, you're missing something that could be really special, you know? And that stayed with me through that whole process, which, you know, time and again, I mean, how many gigs have we done where they're running blenders and, you know, people are interrupting you and they're loud and whatever. They're missing a potential something special. Maybe something in a lyric or something in the way someone sings or plays their instrument that could have a really precious moment for them. So, you know, that's my contrast is like, if I'm going to perform, I want to try and have space for those special moments. And if I don't, then, you know, that, so for me, sound work is full of them. Full of them. You know, you just remind, I had that exact thing yesterday. So one of my daughters was doing, there's a 3-day dance competition going on here in Nanaimo at the Port Theatre, and one of my daughters was performing. And I had a pretty busy day yesterday, so really my intention was I just want to see her and leave. Like I already had other commitments, and it was the middle of the day. She was out of school for it, so. But I went back. She was performing again last night at like 7 o'clock, where I really didn't have anything going on. So I went back for that. I watched her perform, and then there was going to be awards, and it was going to be like an hour and 20 minutes till the awards. And I was debating whether I leave or come back, because I'm like, I don't really care about everybody else's kids. I just came here to see my kid, right? And so my other daughter was sitting next to me, and I decided, you know what, I'll hang out. I'll just hang out and be with my kids, right? Just be that. And there was a point, so 6 point, so ballet point performances were coming out, senior ballet point. So these are young adults that are pretty good at what they do. And so I didn't stay thinking that. I just decided to stay. And I saw these 6 young women come out and do these ballet point performances that were just unbelievable. Like, and what I just heard you say is that I allowed myself to get out of my head, thinking that there's something else, somewhere else better for me to be doing, and just sit in the Port Theatre and allow that artistry to affect me and open up to it. And I'm so glad I stayed. I witnessed something last night that I didn't expect. And there was one gal that my daughter knows she got the, I think the highest award they give is the diamond. So there's diamond, sapphire, ruby, gold. And she got a diamond for her performance. And I'd have given her that. I don't know anything about it, but I was moved by it, right? Yeah. So it was really great, and so I thank you for sharing that, because I can see how I still do that. I still do things where I get in my head and I think there's other things better or something else I need to be doing instead of just being right where I am. And I think a big part of that, Thomas, too, is the society that we're in, right? It's busy, fill the time. You know, look at your phone while you're waiting for your coffee, right? Go, fill it, be in motion all the time. So again, dial back to resonance and entrainment. There's an old saying, you know, you become like the people you hang out with, the 5 people you hang out with the most. That's entrainment. So, you know, look at what's around you. You know, who do you spend the most time with? And what kind of habits are you in your society? Because those will just
automatically happen through an entrainment. Well, I have to be busy. I got to do the next thing. And no, you give yourself a huge gift. And those dancers, by receiving their artistry. Mm-hmm. So taking those moments, slow down and leave yourself some space and don't have all the answers and put your phone away.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. So here's what my takeaway, from you, Narissa, today is that I really see that sounds to me like throughout your journey, you've always found an aim that you could sort of aim up to, that could either you were being pulled towards it or you were pulling yourself towards it. But it seems to be a theme with how your life has unfolded, and it's been around sound, but you've allowed yourself to see that and actually move yourself. So step into action around that. And I really appreciate that. Like for me, that's, I often think that's how I can get myself out of any state I'm in, is if I can find an aim for myself and then actually put in some motion to get myself towards that. Yeah. Yeah.
Taking inspired action.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love learning and growing. And I was also, raised in a house where my father was a school teacher. Mm-hmm. So, every moment could be teachable. Mm-hmm. It wasn't about being right or wrong. It was like, okay, how do we make this better? Mm-hmm. And that's for me right now is a big part of the work that I do. It's how do we make this better? I came here to have a rich experience, a full, joyful, meaningful experience. And part of that for me is inspiring others to do that as well, whatever it is.
Well, I think I delivered that for you today. Well, that's not what you meant, is it?
You're funny.
So how can people find you? What's the best way to find you?
So the website seaofsound.ca is super snazzy and always up to date. So there. Instagram. I like posting on Instagram, especially when I travel, because I have photography in my background too, and I really enjoy that as a creative. Getting beautiful images of what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing. So Have Music Will Travel on Instagram. And my music website is narissayoung.com. And, lots of great things are coming. I'm having the year so far has been just full of awesome experiences. Great growth, great successes so far, and no end in sight. I feel very on purpose and very on time.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Narissa Young, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. And
my pleasure. This was fun.
Yeah, namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah.